When a loved one passes away, the grief and loss that comes with that is so painful. But when that loved one their own life, indescribable. The case we're looking at today is the tragic scenario of a young man who didn't want to live anymore and took his morality into his own hands. But his family and friends knew this couldn't be the reality of the situation. There had to be something more going on. Almost 7 years later, investigators are giving this sad case another look, as so much of the ignored evidence actually points to the true cause of Christian Andreaccio's murder. Anybody who knew Christian could tell you what a happy, fun-loving guy he was. He was passionate about the outdoors, he loved water skiing and riding his dirt bike any chance he got. As much as he liked to have fun, he was also a super hard worker and was adored by his teachers in school. He was also adored by his long-term girlfriend, Avery Smith. The two dated throughout high school and were together for a total of 5 years, on and off. They were totally accepted by each other's families and would go on vacations together and spend Christmases at each other's houses. The Andreaccio family has always been super close, and Christian was especially close to his mom, Ray. They always went to concerts and movies together, even when Christian was a teen and a lot of boys his age would be embarrassed to be seen hanging out with their mom. The last couple years of Christian's life were pretty busy for him and brought about a lot of new changes. The first change was that he and Avery broke up for what would be the last time. After they graduated from high school, Avery started college as well as a full-time job, and Christian started working on a tugboat. With his job, Christian would be offshore for weeks at a time, and when he came back, he only got 15 days to see all of his friends, family, and make the most of his time on land. During this time, Avery still had classes and work and couldn't just blow off those responsibilities to go partying or spend the weekend out of town with Christian. As a result, they started to grow apart, and Avery decided it was time to end the relationship. According to their families, they both knew they were at different points in their lives, and it was time for things to end. Understandably, they were both upset, but they separated on good terms and stayed in contact with each other and their families. After all, they were such a big part of each other's lives for so long, you can't just switch that off. A few weeks after, Christian started dating someone new, a girl called Whitley Goodman. Whitley was a little younger than Christian and totally different from Avery. Avery was really dedicated to her education and kind of an introvert, but Whitley had a bad reputation with her school and got into a lot of trouble. So much that her parents had allegedly kicked her out and she was staying with her grandparents. At first, Christian's family tried to not make any snap judgments about Whitley. In the beginning, she seemed like a sweet girl, but wasn't really interested in getting to know the family that much. What was super clear from the get-go was that she and Christian were obsessed with each other, but not always in a good way. A lot of the time, their relationship could be pretty toxic. Christian's family is open about the fact that he cheated on Whitley, and she did too, which led to a whole bunch of trust issues. They were constantly in contact with each other when Christian was away for work, and even had tracking apps on each other's phones, so they could always see what the other was up to. Doesn't exactly sound healthy, does it? In the months before his death, Christian's brother Josh was going through a divorce and asked Christian to move in as his roommate so he had some help with the bills and rent. Because Christian was there, so was Whitley. However, this led Christian to ask Josh if he would watch out for Whitley while he was away on the tugboat. He was incredibly paranoid about Whitley cheating and using substances when she said she was going sober. On one occasion, he asked Josh to make Whitley take a test to prove her sobriety, and right off the bat, she told Josh she was going to fail. He made her take the test anyways just to get an idea of what she'd been taking, and it was a lot worse than what she claimed. Josh told Christian the results, and he told his brother to kick Whitley out of the apartment, leaving her homeless since she'd also been told by her grandparents that she was no longer welcome in their home. Their relationship was definitely headed in a bad direction, and as time went on, Christian's family liked Whitley less and less. Ray recalled one time Whitley found a photo of Christian and Avery in the family home. She shot the photo and took it to Ray, literally barging into her room and telling her, "I don't want to see this." There was another incident involving Christian's little sister, Alexandra. Allegedly, Whitley gave Alexandra an unknown substance and left the girl alone in the basement as the effects took hold of her. After that, Whitley was told she was no longer welcome in the Andreaccio home. I mean, can you blame them? Around this time, Christian started getting close to a newish friend, Dylan Swearingen. They'd run in the same social circles their whole life and been on sports teams together in school, but they didn't get close until after graduation. Both of these guys liked to party, but Dylan really liked liked to party and had a reputation in the bars and clubs around the area. No one knows for sure how they got back into contact and started bonding, but Dylan started spending time at the apartment, and he and Christian would go out to clubs when he was home from work. One incident is thought to have put Christian on the path that ultimately ended his life. While he was away on work, he was involved in an accident and fell over the side of the boat. Luckily, he was uninjured, but accidents like these lead to many deaths of workers on tugboats, and it gave Whitley an idea. After the accident, she started telling Christian she thought she might be pregnant and that she wanted him to take out life insurance. Christian actually already had life insurance. It was given to him automatically by his employers, but the beneficiary of the policy would be Avery, Christian's ex, in the event of his death. This did not sit well with Whitley. She told him that if she was pregnant and something happened to him, she wanted to know that she and their baby would be taken care of. He told her he would make her the beneficiary of his policy, but it doesn't look like that ever happened. There's no evidence that Whitley has ever been pregnant. February 24th, 2014 was Christian's last day alive on this planet. He was away at work when he got a text from his brother saying that Whitley was driving around town in his car with another man. Furious, Christian made up a story of a family emergency to his boss and returned to shore, promising to be back at work the next day by 5 p.m. He called Dylan and asked him to come get him from the dock. During their 3-hour drive back to Meridian, they talked about Christian and Whitley's relationship. According to Dylan, Christian was seriously thinking about breaking up with Whitley. Whitley was at the apartment when they got there, and a huge argument broke out between Christian and Whitley. Dylan went upstairs and stayed there as they fought, only hearing snippets of the conversation. At one point, things got kind of quiet, so he looked down the stairs to see if they'd stopped. Christian was pointing a gun to his own head and asked Whitley over and over again, "Do you love me?" Whitley got the gun away from Christian, and after that, things seemed to calm down. The three of them watched a movie, and Dylan decided to go out to get some food, like nothing had happened. As he was leaving, Christian allegedly handed him his debit card and told him to take all the cash out of his account. After they ate, Christian and Whitley went for a drive, leaving Dylan alone in the apartment where he fell asleep. Christian and Whitley were back when he woke up. Whitley was asleep, but Christian was still awake. Dylan said he was going out to buy a car radio and left the couple alone, as they seemed to have figured out their issues, at least for the time being. When he came back, Whitley was still asleep, but Christian was in the bathroom. Dylan assumed he was taking a shower, but when he realized he couldn't hear running water, he panicked and opened the door. Christian was lying bent over the bathtub, covered in blood, and a pistol at his feet. The investigation into Christian's death was a sham from the start. It was determined he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, but the crime scene suggested otherwise. The placement of the gun suggested that Christian used his left hand to hold the gun, but he was right-handed. Plus, how could Whitley have slept through the sound of gun firing? The apartment isn't that big. There's no way she didn't hear it. As it was, the crime scene was only active for 45 minutes before they cleared out the apartment. This is a really short time to be on an active scene, which usually take hours to investigate. Christian's family couldn't accept that this was anything other than murder. They didn't believe that he asked Dylan to empty his bank account, and it just seemed super weird that he made promises to be places the next day, then suddenly decided to die. They definitely didn't believe Whitley. She and Dylan gave conflicting reports to the police. Dylan told them the sequence of events I just told you guys, but Whitley claims she did hear the gunshot and she was the one that found Christian. They also found it super weird that before all this happened, she was insisting on Christian adding her to his life insurance policy. So, who's telling the truth? Warrants for Dylan and Whitley's arrests were issued, but for some reason, law enforcement never fulfilled them. To this day, they're walking free, and many agree that Christian's death deserves a real investigation. The Andriacchio family hired their own team to investigate, which included Dr. Jonathan Arden, a forensic pathologist with over 30 years experience. After he reviewed the evidence, he concluded that none of the evidence suggested that this was self-inflicted. Christian's body had been moved and the scene was totally staged. In 2017, new evidence was uncovered, and investigators submitted a report that the case should be looked at as a homicide, but this report wasn't presented during the original investigation. In early 2021, District Attorney Casey Coleman said that with this discovery in mind, she was willing to re-examine the case. There haven't been any new news updates since then, but I truly hope one day I can make a follow-up video to this case with good news. I hope that if Whitley or Dylan is truly responsible for Christian's death, then they will be brought to justice. What do you guys think of this case? Do you think people with sinister motives caused Christian's death? As always, I can't wait to see what you guys think down in the comments below.